Hello, SBI TV subscribers. My name is Greg Alexander. I'm the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping you make your number. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. By tuning in each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for making their numbers. On today's show, I am joined by Alex Shootman. Alex is the president of Apptio. Apptio allows companies such as Cisco, Microsoft, and Bank of America to manage the business of IT. What does that mean? Well, in layman's terms, it takes IT costs, breaks them down, and assigns them to business units, which allows IT in the business to move from saying, this costs too much, to saying, here are the trade-offs of increasing or decreasing IT investments. Alex is responsible for the company's entire field operation. He has 25 years of business experience, and he received his education from the University of Texas. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
All right.
Thanks, Greg.
So Alex, today I am going to ask you to help your peers, those watching, make their 2016 number.
Okay.
By demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. And to do this, we're going to use SBI's workbook, our revenue growth strategy workbook, which is titled How to Make Your Number in 2016. And if you're watching at home and you want a copy of this, go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. And if you want someone from our firm to come out and teach you how to use it, sign up for our workshop at salesbenchmarkindex.com 2016 workshop. All right, here we go. So as you know, SBI's point of view is that there's 6 steps to revenue growth. Today's show is only about 30 minutes, so we only have time for one of the 6 steps. If those of you watching, you want the other 5 steps, tune in to future episodes of SBI TV where we'll have one of your peers demonstrate each one of them. For example, recently we had some peers come on the show and demonstrate steps 1 through 3, which was aligning the market with corporate and product strategies. So today, I'm going to ask you to help the audience align the sales strategy and the marketing strategy. And this debate between sales and marketing has been going on forever, so I thought that would be helpful, okay?
Okay, great.
Now, marketing strategy is a big subject, but for the purpose of this show, we're going to simplify it by defining it as allocating resources to build preference for your product with executives in key markets. Okay, it's really that basic. 5 key activities to connecting the marketing and the sales strategy, and we're going to start at the top and make our way through the 5, all right? So first up, let's talk about brand planning, okay? So basically this is developing a brand promise and then delivering on it. So what is Apptio's brand promise and why should I believe it?
Apptio's brand promise is that we help an IT executive change their relationship with their peer business executives. And doing that by giving them the ability to describe investment decisions in IT with facts and results that business people understand. But at the core, it's really about giving the executive the ability to change their profile and their organization's profile with their business peers. Okay.
And so do you have competitors?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's somewhat of a new category, correct? Mm-hmm. So how is your brand and your brand promise different than your competitors?
Yeah, Greg, we've thought about this a lot. And, to me, there's just some tried and true things that you have to think through when you're doing differentiation. How are you going to be different? Are you going to be different on price? Are you different on the capability that you provide or customer experience? The thing that's interesting about a SaaS company is this mixture between customer experience and functional differentiation, if you will. So when I reflect on how are we different, it really is the knowledge that we have about this emerging discipline called technology business management. And that knowledge finds its way into things like product architecture and things like customer success people's skill sets, for example. But the difference is our core knowledge of the space.
Okay. So if the differentiation is your core knowledge of the space, let's go to sales now for a moment, because we're trying to connect marketing and sales strategy. We've been talking about branding.
Yeah.
So now the way that your differentiation makes its way to customers is through the sales team's engagement, right?
They are the franchise.
Exactly. And the words that come out of their mouth and the experience happens right then, right? So how is your sales team, living the brand with each interaction?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it takes some investment and focus from the leadership team for them to live the brand, right? Because I learned a long time ago, whatever I'm interested in, the team gets fascinated by, so I should be interested in the right stuff. And one of the ways that I show my interest is allocation of resources, right? And so we spend probably 2 times what a normal, really high functional field organization spends on enablement. And some of that enablement is the stuff you would expect us to do, just the normal blocking and tackling that we should do to be a great sales organization. But a ton of the enablement is teaching the team to understand the category that we're creating. And let me give you a couple of real concrete examples of what I mean by that. If you think about telling a business person how much their IT stuff costs, right? You have to figure out how to allocate all of the things that you consume within IT. And those are allocation strategies. And there's a myriad of them that you would use in different situations. And our folks have to be that conversant in sitting down with a CIO to understand that he or she would have to make allocation type strategies and allocation decisions and know the trade-offs of those. That's a high degree of knowledge necessary. The second example I'd give you is it's a new category. Nobody's ever bought this before. Our folks actually, they need to be experts at how the customer is going to buy. And they need to be able to sit down with the customer and say, without being arrogant, I've been through many buying cycles. Let me explain to you what's going to probably happen in your organization as you buy this. Here's when you should get security involved. Here's when you should get finance involved. Here's the business case that you should create. So the answer to your question is the franchise has to live out the brand promise. The brand promise is knowledge. It only gets there with us spending a lot of money, and we have to turn our field team into real experts on this topic.
Yeah, real experts, right? So what I love about that story is I asked you what your brand promise is and why I should believe it, and you crisply articulated to me. And then I asked you to connect it to the sales strategy because that brand promise travels through your sales team. And when you mentioned to me that you spend 2 times as much on enablement than what a like company may do, to me that's putting your money where your mouth is. And you're really connecting marketing and sales through that effort.
Our teams only watch how we spend our time and how we spend our money.
Yeah.
And so we have to do it on purpose or they don't believe the strategy.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick break. But come back after the break, because when we come back, Alex is going to demonstrate for us how to produce content that attracts customers, run campaigns that generates leads, and converts those leads into sales opportunities. 3 key activities that connect marketing strategy and sales strategy. So come back after the break.
This is not a table. It is a stage where your performance is measured in numbers. If you reach them, you get an encore. If you don't, it could be curtains. That's why you need the well-rehearsed, proven sales and marketing strategies of SBI.
Welcome back. You are watching SBI TV. I am Greg Alexander, CEO of SBI, and that is Alex Shootman, President of Apptio. Today we're trying to help you make your 2016 number by demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. We're using SBI's 6-step revenue growth method and the companion workbook to guide our conversation. And today's focus is on step 4, which is connecting the marketing strategy to the sales strategy. There are 5 key activities in this step, and before the break, we reviewed the first one called planning. So now let's turn our attention to activities 2 and 3. So Alex, when I get to the subcomponents of step 2, I get into engagement. And this is defining how your team is going to engage with prospects and customers. So how do you create and distribute compelling content?
Well, Greg, the first thing that we think about on the content journey is at the most simplistic level, we've got to figure out, are we talking to enough people?
Yep.
Are they willing to talk back to, like if we say something to them, will they respond or not?
Is it a conversation?
Right. And then if they respond, can we advance the conversation after that? So I'll talk specifically about a couple of content challenges that we have and how we think about and create content. But I wanted you to know it's all within this, for me, simple framework of, are we talking to enough people? Will they respond? And then can we advance the conversation after that? Now, underneath the covers, part of everybody's got unique challenges. Our unique challenge is we're creating a market, right? And so from a content perspective, it's driven by a couple of big pressure points, I guess you'd say, for us. The first is the buy right now is a team buy. Because it's a brand new initiative that's going into an organization, they've never done it before, and the initiative crosses a couple of functions within the technology organization. There's always 4 or 5 key executive personas that are in the buying process. So when we think about content, the first thing that we think about is, okay, who are each of these people, and how are we going to speak to them about us in a way that matters to them? And then also, how are we going to speak to them as a group about us in a way that matters to the way that they work as a group? So that's maybe big rock number 1, if you will. And it's just driven by what the market that we're in. Then big rock number 2 is really about how do we capture active demand? Because there is no active demand. Nobody's typing in Google, I'd like to buy some TBM stuff today. And it's just, you know this better than me, it's far easier to get money that's there than to create money, right? And so our second big challenge is, how do we get money that's there? And so we go through a lot of thinking from a messaging framework to say, okay, we know the 4 reasons why people hire our product. We know the jobs they hire our product to do, right? They'll hire our product to understand and communicate the cost of IT, as an example. But nobody's looking for that, right? They are doing application rationalization projects. They are moving things to the cloud. And so then the second big challenge for us in content creation is, how do we think about marrying funded buyer initiatives that exist out there, and how do we find those funded buyer initiatives back to the core capabilities that our product does? So those are, maybe guiding concepts for us as we think about content creation.
So that's a challenging content challenge.
Yeah.
Especially, I like the conversation that it's a executive decision team that's buying this versus a single decision maker, which makes creating content more difficult. So let's go from content to marketing campaigns. So you're looking for funded initiatives, but you're trying to get them to rethink what they're buying, and buy TBM from you guys. So you have to have a well thought out campaign plan to make that happen.
Well, I would say the campaign, maybe I can look at it from 2 different lenses. One would be just the business lens. So from a campaign planning, for lack of a better term, we start all the way back with the business plan that says, we have segments that we're pursuing. So how much revenue are we pursuing from each segment, and what does it take to create opportunities in each of those segments? And so we've got a pretty detailed waterfall for each segment that then lines up with specific qualified opportunity targets by segment, whether that's marketing generated or sales generated. So the first input for us on campaign planning is the business plan, and then the resulting requirements that a campaign's going to have to generate, right? So that's door number 1, if you will. Then door number 2 gets into, okay, we want this message to get into the hands of the right people. And so then that really gets into unpacking how does the buyer buy this, and what happens to them in the buying process, and what pieces of information do we need to get to them? And what do I mean by all of that? Because that sounds pretty academic. We know, because we know the buying process, we know that we have a joke inside Apptio. We never have a bad first meeting. Because we're going to an executive and we're saying, would you like to be a better executive?
Yeah.
And they're never going to say no. So we always have a great first meeting. And then there are 3 very specific organizational objections that hit right after that. And the first one is, I don't have the data to do this every single time. So so how does that drive campaign strategy?
Yeah.
So we know when an opportunity hits this stage of the sales process, we hit the buyer with, here's why you don't have to worry about data, right? And not let that get to become an objection later in the sales process. And then the final thing, so what's the business plan?
Yep.
What's the buying process? And so what content do we need to attract people and move them through the buying process? And then the third piece I'd say is, we have to be everywhere. And frankly, we've got some old school ways of doing things that are our highest performers.
They're still working?
This is why I'm glad that our CMO doesn't listen to me about stuff like this, because I'll tell you, we created a poster. When's the last time you thought about shipping a poster to an executive to drive primary, way top of funnel demand? No. It's one of our highest performing assets. Is a rolled up poster. For who would have thought? So we've got to try stuff in every channel, every tactic, because we don't know how people are going to respond.
Okay, that's a great story. So you have a campaign plan that falls out of a business plan, which, by the way, that's a unique thing that I would advise all of you watching this to think about that. That's fueled by content, because you understand your buying process. You're trying all kinds of things in all different ways, posters, etc. So now let's say you kick up some dust and you generate some leads, right? It sounds like, based on what I'm hearing from you, that the sales cycle is fairly long. So you need to nurture people for a period of time. So how do you do that?
We employ a lot of automation, and we employ a sales development team.
You do?
Right. And so we have the top of the funnel fairly well instrumented. And so things start with, Dear Apptio, I'm responding to what you sent out. I like it. I'd like to talk to you. And then that gets scored based upon kind of our knowledge of historically what types of firms and people do we advance conversations with. So that gets scored automatically. And we'll either go into a digital conversation, or it'll go into our SDR team, our sales development team, or you might call it a lead development team.
Yep.
And then they spend the time interacting with that person, further qualifying them based upon some core sales plays that we have. And then that becomes a sales accepted lead.
Okay.
And then it's a salesperson's responsibility to turn that into a sales qualified opportunity. So a lot of automation with the sales development team at the top of the funnel, which we purposefully choke down quite a bit, because we're doing a lot of education of the market.
Okay. So I was curious to hear your sales development reps, and which takes me to my next question, which is organizational design. Sometimes people want to communicate with customers in the early stages only through machine.
Yeah.
And they don't deploy sales development reps, and leads go right to sales at a certain time.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go the other way and they inject humans early in the process. So from your perspective, and for today's show, and I know you work on a lot of things at Apptio, but the marketing org chart and the sales org chart, how do you build those in such a way that they're friendly to each other? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think form follows function, right? So our design is injecting humans earlier. And that's just a result of the fact that we're in a market creation mode. So we really can't automatically listen to enough of what the customer is thinking about to judge if they're an opportunity for us. We have to have a conversation pretty early on. So our automation is really just trying to choke out some stuff that's obviously not an opportunity.
Okay.
The sales development team right now is in marketing, right? And it's in marketing because of this real tight connection between the campaign and between the messaging in the campaign, and then between the call scripts that the SDRs are using to respond to the campaigns. Maybe someday it'll be different, if the market's different, but we really have to have a pretty tightly controlled conversation with the customer to understand if it's a good situation to pass on to sales, or it's something that we should continue the conversation. And the reason why we have to do that, Greg, is because our field has to generate a lot of their new opportunities because they have to stimulate latent demand because it's a new category. So I think the number is easily 30-40% of the opportunities that we have to create have to be created by a sales rep, and we just cannot have them spending time with somebody that's not a qualified opportunity.
Okay, so sales development reps reporting into marketing. Mm-hmm. There'll be people that are watching this show at home and saying, that's crazy, right? So I want to unpack that a little bit because what I want to get to, which you briefly explained on, but I want to dive into, the reason why you made that decision. And you mentioned it is because they're so connected into the marketing campaign, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, and maybe I should expand it because there's really a couple reasons we made the decision. The first is the tight campaign, and I'll unpack that a little bit. The second is, frankly, the time and attention of the sales leadership team, right? So we're in a brand new market. We're growing like crazy. So from a sales leadership perspective, we want the sales leadership to be spending their time in the market, attracting candidates, and frankly, almost as player coaches in the sales calls, because our messaging is changing all the time as the market evolves, right? And so I'm going to come back to the campaign piece, but some of the design point, frankly, was organizational attention.
Okay.
That we knew that if the SDR team was in the sales leadership team's responsibility, they'd spend time on it, which may not be the best place for them to be spending time. Now, on the other side, when we drop a campaign, there's a kind of, call it a rolling thunder set of activities, right? Campaign drops, call script there. We know we've got to make 6-7 follow-up calls within a period of time on message, and the marketing team is all in Seattle, and the sales development team is in Seattle, and the sales leadership team is distributed. And so it was just that real tight cycle time on the campaigns and the execution of the rolling thunder that caused us to believe this is the right.
Interesting.
And there's also a really good working relationship between sales and marketing. So it's not like the SDR team does things that aren't useful to sales because they're not in sales.
Yeah, okay. So the lesson for you watching at home is organizational design between marketing and sales. You can either hardwire in conflict or hardwire in harmony. And you have to be thoughtful when you're building your org chart. And you can connect your marketing and sales strategy through the creation of this org chart. And don't get so hung up on who reports to who. Get focused on what's the task that needs to be completed, and let's set ourselves up with common sense to make that successful. So one last question on this. So that was org design. There's a capacity plan that says I need X amount of SDRs and X amount of reps. And so how do you think about just numbers of heads? Not necessarily how many you have, but just how you think about calculating it.
Numbers of heads in sales or in marketing?
Both.
So I'll handle them differently.
Okay.
From a marketing perspective, we focus on managing to a target operating model, right? That would say, a highly performing, high growth SaaS company should spend this kind of range on marketing, and the mix should be, this kind of range between people and program. Now, we're not exactly on that because we're in category creation, but that would probably be the biggest input and framework that we kind of think through. And then when you unpack that further, you start looking at, in high growth, demand generation is everything. So then we start really looking at what's the allocation of human resources that are focused on demand growth versus other real important parts of the marketing organization like PR, AR, corporate comms, et cetera. So that's kind of headcount planning for sales, for marketing. Headcount planning for sales would look like a very traditional capacity planning exercise for you, but it depends so much on the performance of the revenue engine, right? So we focus a lot of energy on these revenue performance indicators of, what's the conversion rate, what's the velocity. Those two things have a real material impact on our resulting sales force capacity. So sales capacity is pretty much what's been our productivity, what do we think our productivity will be, what's onboarding time, all those things that your listeners probably go through all the time. Then with a gating factor of, in a new market, what do we think we can get our conversion rates to be if we can get, I hate to say this because it sounds mean to the customer, but get rid of the education time that goes on in the sales team.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound mean to the customer. I mean, they need to be educated. There's two ways to do it. You can do it through marketing, you can do it through sales. What's the appropriate way, right? Yeah. All right, we're gonna take one more break. Come back after the break, because when we come back, Alex is gonna teach you how to get the most out of product marketing and field marketing. So stick around.
Your finish line is your number, and the only way to reach it is to make certain everyone is pulling their weight and headed in the same direction. That's why SBI uses proven techniques to bring everyone on your team on board with successful, standardized sales programs, enabling victory at the turn of every quarter.
Welcome back. You are watching SBI TV. I am Greg Alexander, CEO of SBI, and that is Alex Shootman, President of Apptio. Today we're trying to help you make your 2016 number by demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. We're using SBI's 6-step revenue growth methodology and the companion workbook to guide our conversation. And today's focus is on step 4, which is connecting the marketing strategy to the sales strategy. There are 5 big activities in this step, and before the break, we reviewed the first 3 activities. So in our final segment here, we're gonna turn our attention to activities 4 and 5. Okay, let's get to execution, all right? So to me, this is largely the responsibility, not exclusively, but largely the responsibility of product marketing and field marketing on the marketing side. So how does product marketing help your sales team win, specifically with value propositions and positioning statements?
Yeah. So when we look at product marketing, we ask them to be 2 things, right? So first of all, I tell you, Greg, and for any of you all that are in a software company, it's my firm belief that the 2 most important jobs, sorry to say it may not be the sales executive's job, but the 2 most important jobs are product management and product marketing.
Yeah.
Product management telling engineering what to build, product marketing telling the world what you have.
Yep.
If you get those right, man, stuff gets easy. If you get them wrong, it's wicked hard.
Yeah.
So product marketing, we look at them to do 2 things. One is they're the business people of the product, right? So, what's the revenue plan? Are we making the revenue plan? If we're missing it, is it because our messaging's bad? Is it because our skill sets are bad? We don't have product market fit, whatever. Let's set that aside, right? And let's focus on their role in engaging the sales team to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So what I look for from product marketing there is to, lack of a better term, I'd say to kind of canonize the storytelling. What we really focus on a lot internally, what is selling really? Selling is great storytelling. And at the core, the best story ever told is always somebody who overcomes something to get what they want, right? And so product marketing's first job always is to write that statement. And Greg, you would be surprised at how hard it is.
It is hard.
For the product team to write down somebody who overcomes something to get what they want. To write down that story, because basically our product has to be the white knight. Like, what are they struggling with? And our product comes to the rescue. So they got to write the story, canonize the story. Then that story has to find its way into the mouths of the salespeople. And I would tell you, most importantly, it has to find its way into the demo, right? Because if you're a product company like us, ultimately the customer has to see the story told in the product. It can't just be told on a PowerPoint slide. And so product marketing is responsible for working with the pre-sales team to make sure that in 12 minutes, because we're selling to executives, we don't have a 2-hour demo that we can show. Maybe later we do, right? But in 12 minutes, how do we make sure that we've told the story, who's overcoming what to get what they want, and how do we help them do that? And then how do they see that in the product? And then they're responsible for being in the field, on calls, watching demos, looking at the win rate data, et cetera, because the messaging is going to change, right? And they've got to change the messaging. So if I were to just kind of tie a bow around this with product marketing, their job with the field is to win, right? The way I describe, I hope this comes across well for your viewers, because I don't want it to come across wrong, but the way when I sit the product marketing team, I say, here's the deal. Think of yourself as a fashion designer, right? Where the product are the clothes, right? And the model is the sales rep, right? And your job is to get that sales rep out on the run, get that model out on the runway, looking fantastic with the clothes that the product team has designed, right? And so if they don't walk down the runway looking good in those clothes, then you as a product marketer have not done your job.
That's the added wrinkle there. All right, so I get product marketing, that's great. I love the fact that they're in the field and they're focused on winning, they're looking at win-loss data, so it's a very hands-on product marketing team.
When you talk about organizational design, our product marketing team is not in marketing.
Is it in the engineering group?
It's in the field.
Oh, it's in the field?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we did that once again. The only reason it's org design is because of new category, right?
Yeah.
We just knew that messaging was just going to be changing all the time based upon observing the moment of truth with the customer. So we needed that tight connection. Maybe someday it changes because the market, is there.
So this is a good lead into my next question, which I was going to ask you about field marketing. Do you even have field marketing now?
We do.
So what do they do that's different than product marketing?
So field marketing's job is interesting. Remember earlier I said because it's new category, right? We have a lot of the opportunity, latent demand, right? We've got to stimulate latent demand at a customer. So a lot of the opportunity has to come from an individual sales rep, that franchise. The field marketer's job is to hit the sales opportunity target, right? So whatever the number is, so we take here's our revenue number, here's the marketing generated opportunities, here's the sales generated opportunities. The field marketing person's job is to hit the sales opportunity target. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
And so what they do really is they sit with every single rep, and every single rep actually has a personal waterfall, for lack of a better term. It's what's your revenue target, what's your pipeline look like, what's the opportunities that have to be created for you to hit your pipeline, what are the tactics that can be deployed for you to do that, what are you going to do, so what's the number of in-mails that you're going to send, Mr. Rep?
Okay.
Right? On our dead pool of opportunities, what's the number of calls you're going to make this week into the dead pool? And then the field marketer is then a partner of the sales manager, monitoring the activity of the rep against that kind of rep level demand plan that they've created.
It's really interesting. I mean, you almost have the sales rep is part marketing rep and sales rep, and he has a field marketing person who's helping with marketing activities, and he has a sales manager helping with sales activities.
Yeah, it really is that. Now the sales, yes, but I consider the sales manager still owns everything.
Okay.
Right, so the marketing, I consider the field marketing manager to be kind of a report, even though they report into marketing, they're kind of a report into that sales manager, where the sales manager has a portfolio of skills available to him or her. But we look at, we just look at rep by rep. At the end of the day, the rep is the storefront.
Yeah.
If that storefront's not performing, why is that storefront not performing? And that field marketing manager is kind of our our canary in the coal mine, if you will, for why are we not performing.
I mean, it's just another practical example of connecting marketing strategy and sales strategy, right? I mean, that field marketing person plays an incredible role for you.
Yeah, but ultimately, accountability in our organization is at the rep level for pipeline.
Okay.
Right? So we still we basically look at them and say, we give you all the assets in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're not taking advantage of those assets to make your personal plan, then that's your, first rule of solving a problem is figuring out who has the problem.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to the fifth and final step, which is support, right? So here, since today we're focused on marketing and sales integration, how marketing ops and sales ops works together is how this actually happens.
Yeah.
So your CMO, does he or she have a marketing ops person? And if so, what does that person do?
Yeah, Chris picks a CMO, and Chris does have a marketing ops person. And that person is focused on several things. First is data, right? So data is the oil of the marketing machine. So do we have enough? Is it clean? All of that. They're focused on reporting on the performance of the marketing organization. So early on, we talked about the input to spending, and where we spend is the business plan. So how are we doing against that? They're focused on running the marketing technology platform, itself. And they're also the connection into the sales operation, right? But that's the marketing operation.
Okay, got it. So you have a sales operations person, your sales leader has a sales operations person. Is that sales ops leader doing the same activities that the marketing ops leader is doing?
No. Really, no overlap. Well, there's one piece of overlap that I'll talk about in a minute, but it's designed overlap. The sales operations person they're focused on enablement, they're focused on compensation, they're focused on reporting and analytics, they're focused on sales order processing. So they're focused on a lot of what you might consider the real traditional centers of excellence that we have to have in sales operations.
Okay. Some people combine those two jobs, marketing and sales ops. What's your perspective? Do you need two people, or can you get away with one?
It could depend upon the size of the organization. I would tell you the expertise to run the marketing stack is, it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
And we've thought about it at times, but once again, because we're growing so fast, recruiting and enablement is, and we talked earlier about, getting our folks to have the skill set that we need in sales. I don't want the sales operations person learning the marketing technology stack. I just don't want them spending time on that. I need them in the traditional sales ops stuff. So we don't have it combined. I guess you could if it was a smaller organization. It's some pretty different disciplines, though.
So my last question on connecting marketing and sales strategy here is the tech stack, the marketing and sales tech stack. So maybe just for the benefit of the audience, kind of describe it, maybe an outline of it without going into every single application you use, but more importantly, how you determined what that architecture should look like.
Yeah. Well, for me, Greg, everything started from an integration standpoint between marketing operations and sales operations. Everything starts with, we are going to have one view of the truth, right? And one view of the truth, the heartbeat really in a company like ours is the funnel, right? All the way from primary demand through to close. So the non-negotiable, I don't care what products we selected. I have biases, but I didn't really care. My non-negotiable was, you are going to give me one view of the truth. That we have a team that we call our revenue engine team, and that's the demand generation team along with sales leadership, not just top sales leadership, but frontline sales leadership. And they are on a bi-weekly basis, they are looking at the one view of the truth overall, and then the one view of the truth for them. So then picking technologies could come after that, right? The core for us is obviously Salesforce automation and marketing automation, with Salesforce as our CRM system and Marketo as our marketing automation system. Then on the marketing stack, what we look at is the buying cycle. So awareness, interest, desire, customer, and we pick the technologies for the buying cycle from whether it's BuzzSumo to try to listen to sentiment in social media, to on the front end to Jive, which is our customer community platform. But in summary, it starts with come hell or high water, we're going to have one view of the truth on the funnel, right? We're going to have automation because we have to have automation, and then what's the buying cycle look like, and what's new and innovative that we can bring into the buying cycle to move the needle on performance.
Awesome. So what I love about that answer is it was business value first. So come hell or high water, one version of the truth. And the technology fell out of that. And there's a role for technology, all kinds of technologies, automation technologies and non-automation technologies. So that's great. I think sometimes people get confused because it's tech first versus the business problem.
Yeah.
And people get in trouble with that. All right. As you can see, the marketing strategy is a key input into the sales leader's sales strategy. And if the CMO does not take the time to crisply articulate his or her strategy to the sales team and vice versa, then revenue growth will suffer. So the key here is making sure that the marketing leader and the sales leader are on the same page and they tweak each other's strategy going forward in a rapidly iterating way. And if this happens, revenue growth will take care of itself. Revenue growth is dependent on strategic alignment. So Alex, we are out of time. We try to keep this show somewhat short because we broadcast it on the internet. But I wanted to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You've made a big contribution to our field. Some of your peers out there that are watching you are going to make their numbers because of what you said. So
I hope you all make your number. It's a lot more fun that way.
Yeah. And I would also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this show, I suggest you subscribe to SBI TV at salesbenchmarkindex.com/TV, or if it's easier for you, just go to YouTube and look for the SBI channel. We have some outstanding guests confirmed in beautiful locations like this and future episodes that you're not going to want to miss. But until then, I wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number.